Hello, everybody. I hope you all can hear me, and welcome to the first ever virtual masterclass of Seidel Foundation, our global climate and environment project with the title Wetlands and Biodiversity, How Can We Cooperate with Birds? I want to say a few words maybe on the background of this project. We have a project, Hans Seidel Foundation is a political foundation based in Munich, in Bavaria and Germany. And we have global projects, and one of them is a project on networking for environment and climate. And here in Korea, we are responsible for Northeast Asian and Central Asian leg of this project. And when we were thinking how we can cooperate well together to network, we thought it's very important to support one network in the moment, and that is the emerging Central Asian Flyway. We organized twice in 2022 in Incheon, in Songdo, and in 2024 in Samarkand, in Uzbekistan, Interflyways workshop. And we are here now together, in particular, also to share the results of the CMS COP 14 of the Conference of Parties on the Convention of the Conservation of Migratory Species and Wild Animals in Samarkand, but moreover to discuss the global issue of cooperating on flyways. This title was not made by me, and I was very intrigued. How can we cooperate with birds? Do you mean we cooperate for the birds or with the birds? I guess all of this will be the case, and I'm very, very happy we have 5 wonderful presenters with us, which I will later introduce to you. But first, I want to mention 1 or 2 things. This masterclass will be recorded. I hope you are all okay with that, because we want to use it also later for educational purposes and post it on our website so we can use these excellent presentations later on. And later we will ask you also one time to show all your faces so that we can make a group photo. That would be very nice. But first of all, maybe let me introduce now the first speaker to our workshop. As I said, we want in particular to look at the Central Asian Flyway, and here we have Ramesh Kumar as our first speaker, a scientist at the Bombay Natural History Society since 2017, who since a long time worked for the Central Asian Flyway Secretariat at the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in New Delhi in India, consulted for the preparation of national single species action plans for migratory birds, coordinated habitat assessments for migratory bird sites in India. Dr. Kumar obtained his PhD on the impact of renewable energy infrastructure on birds, and was involved in the development of AviStep tool for India, and also involved in the strengthening of the community conservation effort in Eastern Nagaland in India. Dr. Kumar, the floor is yours. We have roughly 15 minutes, and I will ask all people to stay within the time so that we have later some more time for discussion. And for the audience, you can write any questions or comments you have into the Q&A section below the presentation. Please, Ramesh.
Thank you, Seliger. Thank you very much. I think you should share your screen so that I can share my screen. Okay, thank you. Is it visible? Okay, I hope it's moving.
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Okay, today I'm going to talk about India's role, how India has been playing a significant role in the Central Asian Flyway, both in terms of having an institutional framework for this flyway, also in the research and conservation actions on ground. So I will give you an overview of Central Asian Flyway. So it is one of the 9 major flyway, and India overlaps with 3 major flyways. The major one is Central Asian Flyway, but we have also birds coming via East Asian Australasian Flyway and also in the African Eurasian Flyway. As I said, majority of the bird populations, wintering populations, is coming, following the Central Asian Flyway. And as you can see, this is a rough boundary of Central Asian Flyway, starting north in Arctic to, Indian Ocean. The southernmost country is Maldives. But some of the populations are, still moving further towards south. But the rough boundary is this one. We have countries, 30 range countries, starting from Russia to Kazakhstan, Mongolia, all these Central Asian countries, South Asian countries, and also Middle East countries like Oman, Saudi Arabia, Yemen. So these are the countries, and we have UK also because there is a territory of UK within this Indian Ocean. So this is the highlight. Roughly 605 species using the Central Asian Flyway, mostly water birds, land birds, and also some of the raptors. And 8% of the species, overall species out of the 605 species, 8% is globally threatened, and 6% is globally near threatened species. And about 40 species, 40% of these species are, in the declining trend. The most affected ones are raptors and water birds compared to the land birds. And these are the, major threats in the Central Asian Flyway region. This is being, collated by the BirdLife International for the Central Asian Flyway situation analysis, which has been, been the base for the Central Asian Flyway initiative, situation analysis things. So major threats are agriculture development and aquaculture, biological resource use, that is nothing but legal and illegal harvest of bird species, and natural system modifications, that is mainly the habitat alteration and habitat loss, pollution, and there are series of threats including climate change. So India has been playing a significant role from the beginning to have an institutional framework for the Central Asian Flyway, because other adjacent flyways, like we have East Asian Australasian Flyway partnership, and for the African Eurasian Flyway, we have African Eurasian Waterbird Agreement under the CMS Convention. But for Central Asian Flyway, there are frameworks like Raptor MOUs, even EAFP and African Eurasian Waterbird Agreement, this AIMLAP, African Eurasian Landbird Agreement, all covers some of the range countries in their agreement. But as a standalone, framework, there was no standalone framework. So all the range states, including India, has been trying to constitute a framework. So India, there are several meetings before 2005 and after 2005 also happened with the help of other range states. I'm just highlighting whatever India has led. So in 2005, there was a meeting held in New Delhi. It was hosted by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India. So during that range state meeting, the action plan, Central Asian Flyway action plan was formulated, and it was agreed and adopted in 2008 by all the range states. After that, again, there were a series of meetings happening, one in Abu Dhabi, and during the CMS COP, there were side meetings happening. But in 2017, again, India has played a significant role that in CMS COP, 12th CMS COP, India has came forward and said that we will take necessary leadership role in taking this Central Asian Flyway initiative. So after that, there were a lot of homework was done within the government of India. In 2020, the CMS COP13 was hosted by India in Gandhinagar. So during that inaugural, keynote session, Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister of India, he announced that Government of India will play a significant role in Central Flyway Initiative, that is the framework, and also India will, support the range states in developing national level action plans. If at all some countries wants India support, India will be ready to facilitate. That was the commitment made from the highest, authority of India. So it was both in national level and international level, it was considered as one of the key thing. Followed by the CMS COP, again, Government of India had organized one Central Asian Flyway Range State meeting in 2023 at Delhi. During this meeting, draft resolution was made, that is Initiative for Central Asian Flyway resolution, that is formally adopted in CMS COP 14 recently in Samarkand. So this is the highlight of the resolution. So it calls for all the Central Asian Flyway countries to strengthen their regional cooperation at developing certain actions, also working with other existing frameworks like African Eurasian Waterbird Agreement, Landbird Action Plan, Raptor MOU. There are several framework already existing. So this resolution calls for synergy between all the resolutions and frameworks. So this is at the global level, and at the national level also India has been playing a significant Government of India along with other organization, research organization like Bombay Natural History Society, where I am associated with, and Wildlife Institute of India. There are a couple of other organizations like Nature Conservation Foundation. So firstly, India has set up a national coordination unit for this Central Flyway work. In 2018, I was deputed from my organization to this coordination unit. I was there for almost 2.5 years. Still now, I'm supporting Government of India whenever that's some technical requirement. So this coordination unit is mainly to coordinate the actions in national level, also to facilitate Government of India in talking to CMS, also to African Eurasian Waterbird Agreement, also to the other range states. So other significant action was launching India's national action plan. It was a national action plan for conservation of migratory species along the Central Asian Flyway. I think hardly one or two such a national plan exist. So this was a significant effort by the Government of India. This has, this action plan prioritize 79 sites across India, and also 20 species for 20 species as a key species for conservation. So to implement these national action plans, 6 regional committees, including state governments, were formed. So the 6 major regions like Northwest. So 6 major committees were formed. These committees were, trusted with the implementing this action plan on ground. So as I said, there were 79 sites was prioritized as key sites for the migratory birds using Central Asian Flyway. There are 49 wetlands and 31 landbird sites. So the blue dots you can see in the map, the blue dots are landbird sites and the red dots are waterbird sites. These are some of the key sites, like starting from Sundarbans, Bitterganika, Chilka, Pulicat, Point Kalimer, Gulf of Mannar, this region, and again West Coast, Mumbai coast, and Gujarat coast. Again, India is involved in preparing site-specific preliminary assessment of these sites, collating existing information on these sites. BNHS is facilitating, providing technical support for this activity. So right now we are monitoring all these 79 sites, and we are trying to come up with some sort of recommendations if at all necessary. if there are any pressures, we are documenting that pressure, how to mitigate that pressure. We are working on that aspect as well. So 20 species has been prioritized, as you can see, flamingos, both greater and lesser flamingo, critically endangered sociable lapwing. There are 3 duck species and the Indian skimmer, black belly tern, and also critically endangered yellow-breasted bunting, and 10 shorebird species, starting from curlew sandpiper to great knot, Eurasian curlew, lesser sandplover, black-tailed godwit. Currently, BNHS is again developing a national shorebird action plan for India. All these 10 species has been, is the key species for developing this action plan. I will just browse through this how this action plan was formulated. So we have provided the information about all the species, both as global status and how where it is distributed within India, what is the status in India. So as you can see, these shorebirds mostly as you can this global trend is reflected in India as well. You can see most of the species is declining. This analysis is done by State of India's birds collaboration. This is being recently released in 2023. And we have also documented major threats for these shorebirds. These major threats, it's common to other water birds as well, like habitat degradation and loss. It includes encroachment, reclamation, siltation, all this habitat. Aquaculture is one of the major threats, and non-conventional salt pan production, non-scientific intervention. Just to highlight this, one of this such kind of activity, this mangrove is being planted widely across the coast of India, but even some fresh intertidal mudflats are targeted for mangrove plantation. So what happens is shorebirds, as you may know, it prefers it as specialized in intertidal habitats. When these intertidal habitats are converted into mangrove plantation, it's actually there is a loss in the foraging area that can affect the species population levels. There is also illegal hunting. Hunting is legally banned in India to all species. There is no single hunting is allowed, but there are illegal hunting happening. Government is also trying to, come up with some sort of strong enforcement of legal systems. But still, some of the illegal hunting is happening, and pollution, as being one of the developing countries in Asia, there are severe pollution threats from industrial effluents, also from sewage. So based on these threats, we have come up with certain actions. This is a broad headings of this action, but we have given specific actions, site-specific actions also wherever possible in the action plan. So likewise, we are developing a species action plan for all the 20 prioritized species. We are clubbing the species, like we have developed one action plan for the shorebirds. We are developing one action plan for all 3 species of ducks. Likewise, flamingo, there is one single action plan. So hopefully these action plans will help these implementing state governments in, it will make the state governments easy for implementing these activities. So there are other works. This is from the government side, but there are other works being done both by the government and also mainly by the research organizations. One is bird migration studies, bird ringing activities. Bird ringing activities is being done in India from 1920s itself. It's one of the pioneering country in the Central Asian flyway involved in bird ringing. As you can see, we are using these 2 white flags for northern India and one black flag for southern India. This is mainly for waders, and also we are following the station oscillation flyway color codes for the other species as well. And in 2018, a bird migration atlas for India based on all the existing data. Migration atlas was also produced. This is just a picture from curlew sandpiper recoveries from these bird migration atlas. You can see some of the populations, they are following Central Asian flyway, some of the population they are following East Asian oscillation flyway. And also large level capacity building is being done for the frontline forest staff. They are the people who are involved in protecting the forest areas and also some key wetlands which are protected areas. So we have been providing training to these frontline people exclusively on Central Asian flyway issues related to Central Asian flyway, how monitoring migratory birds, how this bird bringing bird migration study is being done, how to monitor the disease surveillance part also we are covering. So exclusively on these aspects, large level capacity building is being done. Another major work is being done is on the energy, renewable energy. As you all know, this is one of the developing issue across the Central Asian flyway, we can say, especially in India. India is one of the key, it is fourth in the wind energy development sector. So there are wind powers and associated power lines are being installed in some of the key habitats of migratory birds. So these affect mainly by direct bird mortalities and also displacement and barrier effect. So there are not much studies with respect to this aspect, but there are a couple of studies existing. Based on that, there are some mitigation measures also being taken in India. And BirdLife International has come up with this AV step tool. BNHS has been collaborating for developing this tool. This tool is, to provide the energy developers to locate areas where the bird sensitivity is less. Multiple criteria has been used, like conservation status of the species, vulnerability of species for pollution with these structures. So multiple criteria have been used to develop this AV step tool. I think now some of the it's being funded by ADB, so some of the developers using ADB fund they are using, and hopefully it will be integrated into their government system. So all the energy developers will use this AV steps tool. So at the planning stage itself, we can mitigate some of the measures. So
One
offshore
more
wind
minute,
energy is also
Ramesh.
being.
One more
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm just about to finish. So one issue is this in the Gulf of Mannar offshore wind energy is being planned, and recently there are plans to install wind turbines in the Sri Lankan part, and there are a lot of protesters going on by our colleagues in Sri Lanka, because this is one of the key route for the migratory birds, and there are some species specific conservation actions also being taken by BNHS and other organizations. One good example is Indian skimmer. It is a threatened species, globally threatened species, and it nests in the sandbars. And these sandbars are threatened by various threats like cattle grazing, by feral dog predation, and also sand mining. So one of my colleague Parvin, she's working exclusively on this aspect, and she has come up with the Nest Guardian program. So she has involved the local communities to protect this nest. It's giving us very successful, rates. So there are other works like on bustets also. Because of time constraint, I'm not explaining all those things. And just to highlight this, there was a recent workshop was held in Mumbai to collate all the existing information on the seabird movements in the Indian Ocean. So these are the outcomes. These maps are the outcome. So this is how this ground level works are feeding into the flyway level systems. So the last one is state of India's birds. It's one of successful collaboration between 13 organizations, including both the governmental and non-governmental organization. So this has been recently published in 2023, the second version of the State of India's Birds. It also highlights how these migratory birds are doing based on the citizen science data. And most of the migratory birds are in a decline trend. So this is all about the major works being happening in India. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Seidel.
Thank you so much, Ramesh. That was wonderful. And I guess there's probably many comments and questions already, but we have not so much time. So I again propose we put everything together in the end of the session. Then we have a little more time for questions. But congratulations to your work and what you did in the last slide where you showed this collaboration of different organizations. That's really the spirit of networking among different organizations and levels of institutions to come to good results for bird conservation. Wonderful. And now let me please come to our next speaker. That's Vivian Fu, Senior Manager in WWF Hong Kong. And she was supposed to speak on pre-recorded, but fortunately she could make it here. So Vivian, wonderful that you are here. Most of people know you, I guess. You were for a long time, for 6 years, Senior Communication, or for 10 years, sorry, Senior Communication Officer at the EAFP. And now before you were already working at Hong Kong Birdwatching Society, and now you even widened your focus because at WWF Hong Kong, you are since last year Senior Manager for Asian Flyways initiatives. So not only for EAFP, but also the new CAF. And we are looking very much forward to your presentation now. Wonderful to have you here.
Thank you, Dr. Siliger. And may I share my screen? And yes, so thank you very much for inviting me for the webinar. And let's share the full screen. Okay, cool. So yeah, hi everyone. And so some of you I'm familiar with as when I was working for the EAFP as the Senior Communication Officer. But now with my new role with WWF Hong Kong on the Wetlands for Asian Flyways initiative, I'm still working in the flyway, but also including not only the EAF flyway, but the Central Asian flyway. And with my background, I would like to share more about the importance of SEPA for conserving the flyways. And thank you very much for Ramesh for a really good overview at the beginning of your presentation about the Central Asian flyways. And I'm just to narrow it down and for somehow maybe including some other like situation in the whole world for highlighting that actually the two flyways in Asia, they're not doing well. So Central Asia flyway and East Asian Australasian flyways, they are among the most threatened flyways in the world. And Central Asia flyway is overlapping with the East Asian Australasian flyway. So we are also talking this as a whole, as an Asia Pacific region. And we all know that the habitat loss, like the wetland loss, is one of the main reasons driving all these migratory birds declining in the region. We need to bend the curve. We need to change the declining norm of the migratory birds. So we need the behavioral change. So to do that change, we need CPAP. So for some of you who do not know CPAP, C stands for communication or capacity building. E stands for education and empowerment. P for participation, and A for awareness. There are a whole lot of different definition of CEPA, CPAP by UNEP. There are a toolkit and the program, CPAP program from RAMSA, from CBD. So all different international institutes, they also have their own CPAP program. So we can follow that. But I wanted to stress that many people may think that CPA activities is a separate activities from a conservation program. But in fact, it is important and it is everywhere. It should be included at all levels, including targeting different audiences like governments or policymakers, the society, the general public, business sectors, and site managers, of course, who are dealing and managing the sites for conservation purpose, the scientists who supplied us with information, data, and scientific evidence for us to proceed with conservation measures, and of course donors who support financially for some of our activities, and a lot more stakeholders like the fishing or farmers, communities, school teachers, artists, journalists, all this should be included in the whole CEPA program. And so, yeah, because I only have 15 minutes, so I would like be quick. And just to flag out that we should make use of existing mechanisms. Dr. Ramesh mentioned about CMS, who has adopted the decision on the initiative for Central Asia Flyways. There are also international mechanisms or tools that or platforms that we can make use of to include the agenda for conserving the wetlands and habitats for migratory birds, including water birds, land birds, raptors, everything, seabirds. So like the intergovernmental platforms like the conventions, the CBD, the Ramsar Convention, the Convention for Migratory Species, they are all good tools for international level. And we can also be aware and make good use of the multilateral and the bilateral agreements. Some of them could be legal, but some of them could be informal, like the partnerships, the EAFP, the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership. And of course, the NGO networks, which are the frontiers or which can be broader and like as a frontier for initiating a lot of innovative conservation actions. We should also make use of good use of the global awareness campaigns. For example, the World Wetlands Day, and for migratory birds, the World Migratory Bird Day will be a key CEPA activities that we can focus. And the good thing is it can be held in two times a year in May. The coming one is on the 11th of May. So I would like to remind everyone to celebrate on the World Migratory Bird Day in the 11th of May or around that period, and another time in October. We should also learn a lot from the other flyways. There are good examples like the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership. Under that, there is a network of flyway site networks. So these are designated by the governments for the important sites for the migratory birds. So for Central Asian Flyway, we can also think about mechanism or different ways that how can we link up together, even though we are not legally binded in a like CMS or convention or under some agreement. So the new CMS tools with the cooperative unit will be a useful platform for us to think about how we can connect it. And also highlighting a special mechanism under EAFP, which I was more familiar with, is like sister site partnership. Under it, we can have a lot of different exchange or sharing of information or our experience. Like working with schools, we have the Birds in Schools activities between Incheon, Korea and Hong Kong. And another time was the exchange between the site managers and the surveyors between Songje Bulak Nature Wetland Reserve in Singapore and Chongmingdongta Nature Reserve in China. Further away, we can also learn from the East Atlantic Flyway, where we can see the Walden Sea Trilateral Cooperative for the World Heritage Site is a good example. And there are lots of good materials, examples, and existing good places for us to learn. Like they have a lot of hundreds of education programs. They have more than 60 visitor centers along the coast. And like how the government works and the scientists works and collaborate during the meetings, we can all learn from that. And I got a privilege to visit them in a twinning program for 4 weeks before. So yeah, my twinning partner from WWF Germany worked at Walden Sea office, and I have been exchanged to visit the Walden Sea and the Yellow Sea for her for some time. So this kind of like twinning program could be another thought for us that we can strengthen our bonding together. And going down for like building the network, we then of course need to work at site level. So here I would like to stress that the importance of engaging local communities for conservation. The local communities should be our main stakeholders to work together for conservation. And they, in the conservation programs, we can also benefit them to tackle some of the issues like climate adaptation, disaster risk reduction, water security, food security, and of course biodiversity conservation. And altogether, it will be the benefit for the well-being of humans. And they will also be an important player for us for conservation at local level because the traditional knowledge is very valuable for conservation. And here I would like to bring you two very quick case studies so that you can have an idea. One is in Hong Kong. The red line circling the Maipo Inner Deep Bay Ramsar site, and the yellow area is the Maipo Nature Reserve managed by WWF Hong Kong. And we are keeping the traditional way of fisheries in the nature reserve. It's called Gay. Gay means fun, and Wei means in Chinese called circling something. So as you can see within the gateway, they circle a part of the wetlands. It is a traditional way of fisheries, and the mangrove are still kept inside. There is an outlet at the opening, and it's allowed the water to go in and out towards the sea, following the tides. And you can see the dissection of the gateway. There is a slope in the gateway so that the water will flow according to the when the water gate is open or closed. Is open. And here's a slight animation for you to see how the fishermen make use of the tide and the mangrove for benefiting them with the gateway streams and fishes, which is really famous in the area in southern China. So during the high tide, in spring, the eggs and juvenile of stream will come into the gateway, and over the year, then they will grow inside. The fisherman doesn't need to feed the streams and fish because they will feed on the derbies from the mangroves and the microorganisms in the gateway. And during the full moon, like the spring tide at night in autumn, and then the fishermen will just open the gate and harvest all the stream at the gate. So it's really easy effort for them to raise and catch the streams and for sale. And this is also benefiting the migratory birds when they are opening the gate and for the harvest because they're lowering the water level. As you can see, this is at the beginning. And when they lower the water level in the gateway, birds started to come in and feed on the remaining unharvested stream and fishes. So it becomes a paradise for migratory birds during the migratory season in Maipo, even though that we are in the middle of a city. Yeah, so another quick example for you is using the traditional knowledge. It's a personal case here in Chengmin Dongtan Bird National Nature Reserve in China. And this guy called the Master Jin Weibo is a former hunter who became a research ranger, assisting with bird monitoring and research with his traditional way of using bird whistle. And I would like to quickly share with you a short video. Oh, I think I need to reshare this. I forgot to do the share sound button. Quickly, I will share that. Okay. Let me know if you can hear the song. Hey! 就好这些。So he is imitating the bird call.
啊，一个叫打捞鱼，还有一个叫周少鱼。
Narration prelude.
叫周守义。
This is Winbrew. So with this, he is trying to catch the birds for landing, bird landing and research. Right. Yes. So this is the two examples from here. I'm quickly showing to you what WWF is doing. So obviously there are some existing activities or programs for conserving migratory birds in the national level. So yeah, they are doing it in individual offices, but we know that flyways work. We need to collaborate. So that's why 5 years ago, WWF has launched the Asian Flyways Initiative. And we are now rebranding it as the Wetlands for Asian Flyways Initiative to highlight the importance of wetlands. And for the two flyways that is covered by this initiative, there are East Asian Australasian Flyway and the Central Asian Flyway, and they're overlapping. And about 20 WWF offices are within this area. And we are not only like looking at the WWF office, but looking wider collaboration with external partners that we can collaborate and synergize our efforts together. And within this initiative, we are focusing on three pillars. So I'll quickly go through this, and it's only a few slides on this. The first pillar is on the wetlands. Of course, we wanted to highlight the importance of wetlands because the loss of the wetlands have driving the loss of the migratory birds and impacting the communities. So restoring, conserving, and effectively managing the network of wetlands will be important. That will help us to also conserve the population of migratory birds. And with that, with the healthy wetlands ecosystem, that will also benefit the communities for like climate resilience and adaptation, but also to make them as a custodian to wetlands through nature-based solutions. So this is our basic ideas for working with this initiative. We are also looking for and willing to do collaboration with all of you here and with everyone who are interested to work together, because no single organization can do everything. So at the CMS Club, our representative made a statement of support to the initiative for Central Asian Flyway. And so we are looking for synergies with the others and also encourage existing programs which are not originally planned for migratory birds, but their site is also migratory birds, can consider some bird-friendly mechanism or project design so that it can co-benefit the biodiversity question as well. Capacity building, Dr.
1 minute.
Ramos mentioned. Yes, I only have 3 slides left, so it should be fine. Thanks. For capacity building, yes, totally agree with what Dr. Ramesh has mentioned. It is needed, especially for the frontier managers and the stakeholders. So in WWF Hong Kong, we have over 20 years of training on wetland management, and we are bringing people from governments, NGOs, and staff for like institutes and researchers together for usually a 5 to 8 days training workshops. And some of them over the past 20 years, they became senior decision makers. So we can see the impact of the ongoing regular training program is very needed to build a strong, continuous pool of excellence expertise for the conservation of the flyways. And we also provide small grant fund for those who need it in the East Asian Australasian Flyway and Central Asia Flyway. And of course, the last message is to empower youth. I'm always really wanted to highlight the importance of young people because they will be our future power. So making use of different organizational or institutional youth programs. For example, the RAMSA is establishing the youth working group. The EAFE is also promoting the East task force, and like WWF also has a One Planet Youth program. Different organizations have their youth activities, and like the YEW and EAFE has the Flyway Youth Forum before, and now East Atlantic Flyways also established the Flyway Youth Forum. So there are a lot of potential that we can join force together and bring and provide a lot of opportunities and resources to equip and empower our young people so that they will be a future driving force for conservation in the for everyone. So that is the end of my presentation. I hope it's not overrun. Thank you very much for listening, and I will be here until the end.
Wonderful, Vivian. That was really great and important. And I really hope also this small virtual workshop can be a start for some cooperation. Maybe you saw that, Ms. Fu, that Vivian really asked for cooperation, offered cooperation, and I think you have great programs there. So I hope maybe some match can be made. And now we come to our third presentation. We run a little behind our time by Ruslan Urazaliev, scientific researcher and project manager at the Association for the Conservation of Biodiversity of Kazakhstan, ACBK, since 2010. Welcome, Ruslan. Ruslan conducted work on the sociable lab wing and the planned natural urban park Taldikol in Astana, the capital of Kazakhstan, in the Central Asian Flyway Initiative. And he has also conducted research on steppe birds like larks, black-winged pranticles, little bastards, populations in Kazakhstan. Welcome, and we are very much looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, there are some problems with the demonstration. Sorry, can you run my presentation from the Google Drive? So I downloaded my presentation. So
It's back.
Zoom
Can you try that?
Yeah, because
Yes, I will open your presentation.
otherwise Zoom is asking to for the updates. Okay, sorry.
Okay, no problems.
Okay, so I will start then. Thank you very much for the invitation and for this opportunity to give a presentation for you. So today is actually ACBK receiving congratulations, because today we celebrate our 20 years anniversary. So it's a 20. So our organization today is 20 years old, and I decided to. So while preparing the presentation, so I decided to make it to use some symbolism, let's say, for our organization, for the birds in general. So I will talk about overview of the birds conservation projects that's doing by ACBK, by our organization. So so we started. Can you make it full screen, please?
Okay. Please.
We started our work on birds conservation since the first day of our organization, since 2004. So next slide, please. So we work in birds conservation since 2004. We work as for species conservation, for ecosystem conservation, and of course, so generally, so we have let's say, like a three main direction of our work. It's a species conservation, ecosystem conservation or territory conservation, and the third part, very important one, is work with people. So it's like with local community in general, with like advocacy procedures and so on. So next slide, please. So talking about symbolism, yeah. So next slide, please. So I would like to start with the steppe eagle. So as most of you know, this species is endangered species listed in IUCN Red List. It's also in our national red data book. And for this species, Kazakhstan is a main breeding, let's say, range. Yeah. Next slide, please. And the importance of this species for us is actually indicated in our national flag. On our national flag. So 85, by the last estimation, 85% of the world population breed in Kazakhstan. So our country is very important for the conservation of this species. Next slide, please. And talking about threats. So here in Kazakhstan, there are main three threats. The first one is steppe fires, because as you know, the steppe eagle is a ground nesting bird, and they use some bushes and trees, but they are okay with breeding on the ground, and because of it, steppe fires is quite huge threat for them. Habitat loss is also quite obvious one because of the intensification of the agriculture and so on. And the third problem is electrocution. Next slide, please. So, and this problem is quite huge one, because annually about 35,000 individuals of different species of eagles die because of the electrocution in Kazakhstan. So, and we have to solve this problem, and we started a special project on steppe eagle. I mean, focused especially on the steppe eagle since this year, but actually we started this work back in 2012. So it's all this species was always one of the priority species for the steppe conservation in general. And yeah, so I think the special focus project on the steppe eagle conservation will help us to solve this problem in our country. And one of the, let's say, good opportunities for this is the fact that at the COP14 in Samarkand, the government of Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, they signed MOU for the steppe eagle conservation. So, and we also signed raptor MOU as well. So I think this will should be the good start for the proper conservation project for this species. Next slide, please. We in 2021 we tagged 3 juveniles of the steppe eagle in central Kazakhstan, and here on the map you can see that 3 of them successfully reached their wintering grounds, and it's obvious that all of them use Central Asian flyway to their wintering grounds, and which also indicates the importance of the Central Asian Flyway Initiative, which where Kazakhstan is also takes part for this initiative. Next slide, please. Another symbolic, let's say, species for our organization is white-headed duck. So maybe some of you already mentioned that on our logo, you can see the image of white-headed duck. And so It's also IUCN red listed species. It's again in our red data book, national red data book. Main breeding range also located in Kazakhstan, and during migration, over 90% of the world population actually cross our country and use as a stopover site before migration. And next slide, please. So it's a typical species for our, let's say, steppe lakes. And next slide, please. And again, there are some threats for this species in Kazakhstan. One of them is illegal hunting. It's not a huge, let's say, problem for this species, but again, you see the picture, and there is an evidence that sometimes, let's say, this species of ducks also hunted, but it's not the priority game species for local hunters, let's say. It's just by accident, or I don't know why it happened, or maybe, you know, not very professional hunter killed these birds, but again, there is an evidence. And another problem is fishing nets, this cheap one, you know, and you know, people use them for just once. They don't care about it. They just leave their nets in the lake or in the river, and these nets actually cause of the deaths of diving ducks, and white-headed duck, one of them. So here you also can see the picture. It's actually made by myself in 2012, I think, in autumn. So next slide, please. Of course, we try to understand the situation with this species in our country, and we conduct annual monitoring of this species in central Kazakhstan. And we see more or less, you know, let's say, stable trend for the number. But again, our partners in, for example, in Russia or in Uzbekistan, they also indicated the number of birds that they see is declining. So it's also new challenge for us, try to understand what's happening with this species. And the difficulty is that we are trying to find a solution to tag them, but again, because of the flight style and the lifestyle of this bird, it's quite difficult to find the right tag for them. So, and it's still a challenge for us. But there is it's in our to-do list, let's say, to study the migration of this species. Next slide, please. Another symbolic species for our organization is sociable lapwing. And it's symbolic because ACBK started with this project. Let's say it's since 2004, we study and we study this species, and we run the project since 2004. It's IUCN red listed species, again in our red data, national red data book. More than 95% of the world population breeding in Kazakhstan. And next slide, please. And it's a typical steppe bird, ground nesting bird, and it's also grazing dependent species. So let's say natural habitat for breeding habitat for them, it's pastures with a short vegetation and with some quite good grazing pressure. And since like the last 5-7 years, we see that quite how do you say, like warning trend that they change their breeding behavior in Kazakhstan and try to occupy the arable fields and becoming farmland bird, as you call them in Europe, for example, and it also could be the cause of nest loss and the reason for the declining of the breeding population in central Kazakhstan. Next slide, please. Talking about threats, so I already mentioned that there is a change in the habitat, and also the habitat loss. The picture on the bottom left, you can see, so it's a picture that's showing the intensification of the agriculture in Kazakhstan, and people start to use abandoned fields, which were abandoned for the last 30 years and started to recover for the normal step, let's say, from the arable fields that were converted during the Virgin Land campaign in the 60s of the last century. And there's a, let's say, the new, the second wave of this Virgin Land campaign here in Kazakhstan. Another problem is a global problem. It's illegal hunting, especially in the Middle East, because from these countries we have quite enough evidences that it's happening there. And the third threat problem that I can indicate is climate change. So I thought, let's say 10 years ago, I've never think about the climate change as a threat for the sociable lapwing in Kazakhstan, but now I see that it could be quite a huge problem for them. And the picture that you can see on the slide, the sociable lapwing in the grass, in the tall grass, you can see that how it's habitat changing here. So they prefer the short vegetation, as I mentioned before, and now the typical, let's say, breeding areas now transforming to the meadow steppe with the tall vegetation, which is not very suitable for them. The next slide, please. Quite big part of our work is a satellite tagging and migration study of these species. And here you can try to find the tag bird on this picture. It's on the top right, yeah, with antenna, yes. So I would like to, quite briefly tell you about the results. Next slide, please. So we started to tag them since 2007, and for the next 8 years until 2015, we used GPS Argos tags. It's actually a tag from the picture before with a long antenna. So, and on the left, you can see the map that was actually prepared, yes, thanks to the data that we received from these tags. And you can see that quite big proportion of birds use this Western flyway, and only four birds use the flyway and to the way, to the wintering grounds in Pakistan and India. But in 2022, since 2021, we started to use GPS GSM tags, so the new technology and more accurate data. And on the right side, you can see the map, the result of the tagging in 2022. We tagged 18 birds, 17 of them successfully started their journey to wintering grounds. 14 of them reached their wintering grounds, and here you can see the completely different picture that we had before, and which shows a great importance of the Central Asian flyway And actually, we have some evidences that something happening on the Western Flyway, and that the population of the sociable lapwing using this Western Flyway is declining. And now the biggest chunk of the population using now the Central Asian Flyway. And again, I would like to mention the Central Asian Flyway Initiative, and I think the results of our work is also quite, obvious that it can be used as an evidence of the importance of this flyway. The next slide, please.
One more minute.
Yes, yeah, I'm finishing. So here I would like to mention that we also work on the monitoring of geese and ducks in northern Kazakhstan. So it's annual monitoring. Of course, we're focusing on the threatened species as a red-breasted goose and lesser white-fronted goose. But during this monitoring, we count all species that we see there, and at the same time, parallel to the monitoring, my colleagues they do quite big work on anti-poaching activities. They demonstrate posters and so on, and have a meeting with hunters, local people, community, and explaining them and describing them the importance of the bird conservation in their region. And the final slide, please. The whole work of ACBK on the bird conservation, let's say, is actually published in this book called Important Bird Areas in Kazakhstan. It's quite good catalog of our 121 IBAs, which were identified in 2008, but now we have 7 more, and we're still working on the increasing the number of IBAs in Kazakhstan. So thank you very much for your attention. So I hope so my presentation was useful and helpful to answer the question of this masterclass. How can we cooperate for the bird conservation? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruslan. And once again, congratulations to your great work and also to your 20 years. I'm very, very sure there will be many other successful decades of work to come. And I hope work together with all of us here interested in conservation on the Asian Flyway. I'm sorry, I always have to press you a little bit about the time. We come now to our next presentation. That's a video of Mimi Kessler, Dr. Kessler, who is a co-chair of the IUCN Bustard Specialist Group, who earned her PhD at the Arizona State University in biology for her work on bustards, and to work for 20 years on bustards on the Central Asian Flyway, the Great Bustard, Eastern Great Bustard, and also on the Arabian Peninsula, where she's located now. Please, Minze, could you start the presentation?
Hello. First of all, I would like to thank the Hans Seidel Foundation for this invitation to speak. I'm honored to provide a presentation alongside colleagues whose work I admire. My name is Mimi Kessler. I have been working with the bustard family of birds for almost 20 years. I direct an international collaborative effort for these birds in North Eurasia, the Eurasian Bustard Alliance. I am also now active in the Arabian Peninsula, and I serve as co-chair of the IUCN Bustard Specialist Group. I'm sorry I can't present live with you today, but I am glad to be in contact with today's listeners and participants by email. To begin, I want to provide a brief introduction to bustards. Bustards are the most threatened terrestrial family of birds, with 60% of species threatened with extinction. In the Central Asian flyway, or the CAF, which is the focus of today's masterclass, their status is even more troubling. The species in the CAF include the great Indian bustard, the Bengal florican, the lesser florican. All three are critically endangered. The great bustard, which is listed globally as endangered, but whose populations within Central Asia and East Asia, which includes the distinct eastern subspecies, are at a higher level of threat. The Asian houbara, which is listed globally as vulnerable. The little bustard, listed as near threatened. And last but not least, the Arabian bustard, also listed as near threatened. And populations of all 7 species are declining per IUCN. Bustards are a very compelling family of birds. They include the heaviest bird capable of flight. They display some of the largest sexual size dimorphisms observed in birds. That is, the difference in size between males and females can be extreme. And bustards undertake amazing breeding displays. Both the great bustard and houbara bustard transform their appearance from cryptic brown birds into bustling bright white balls of feathers. The charming floricans repeatedly jump into the air so that their mates can observe them and admire their acrobatics above the tall grass. And the great Indian bustard inflates a sac in its throat with air, which it uses to make repeated booming noises, heard by females at large distances across the open landscape. We're speaking in the follow-up to Convention on Migratory Species, Conference of Parties number 14, the CMS COP14. I'm glad to report that we made some important steps for bustard conservation at the COP. And overall, we encountered so much positive energy, good conversations, and international goodwill for cooperation for the conservation of bustards, birds, and other migratory animals. As relates to bustards specifically, we achieved the adoption of the Action Plan for Bustards in Asia, Great Bustards in Asia. This document is the cumulative effort of 30 contributors, and these include contributors from every range state of the species in Asia. The document is published in 4 languages. In order to facilitate the implementation of the action plan, the COP also decided to extend the concerted action for great bustards in Asia, and Iran has stepped forward to lead this continuation, which this concerted action was previously led for 2 triennia by Mongolia. We held a successful and well-attended side event on bustards. The concept of this side event was to bring together pairs of speakers from countries that share transboundary populations of bustards. And this both demonstrated existing partnerships and was intended to increase dialogue between actors in these country pairs. The CMS COP provided a rare opportunity for bustard conservationists to meet in person, and we took advantage of this opportunity to discuss how we are working to combat similar threats in different countries or for different species, how we can learn from each other and achieve more by working together. And we decided that there are some ways in which we can work more effectively together to combat threats for all bustard species across much wider swaths of territory. The Central Asian Flyway is one of the instruments we can work through towards our goals. So what are some of the threats that we can collaborate on? Energy infrastructure is a threat to all bustard species. Due to their body shape and visual system, there is currently no mitigation that creates significant reductions in mortality for bustards. Some species of bustard are endangered or critically endangered almost entirely due to mortality due to collisions with power lines. This threat is growing at an extremely fast pace in the Central Asian flyway, where energy developers fancy the open, sunny, and windy habitats of bustards. Bustard conservationists can work together to share technical resources and strategies to reduce this risk. But we know that renewable energy infrastructure in general, impacts a much wider variety of taxa, including raptors, bats, songbirds, cranes. Currently, many of us advocate for our taxa in our remit on a case-by-case basis. And this means that energy companies receive requests to do piecemeal mitigations, to add diverters, which work only for some species, add perch deterrents for others, schedule work stoppages of turbines while other species pass through. And this takes place instead of comprehensive planning. And this is a frustrating situation for, I think, all involved. As we discussed at our meeting for CAF planning in Delhi, a compelling pilot project for the Central Asian Flyway could be to undertake flyway-level mapping of energy infrastructure and planning for future development through a process that takes into account the needs of all migratory taxa. Poisoning is another issue that affects not only multiple species of bustard, but multiple species of birds. Intentional poisoning for meat for commercial sale kills not only gray bustards, but also pheasants, magpies, and passerines. Unintentional poisoning on agricultural fields with rodenticides affects bustards and also a host of water birds and cranes. Our voices can be stronger when we speak together to try to change the application practices of these chemicals to improve the situation for all birds. Another challenging issue is birds and agriculture. Grassland habitats around the world are highly threatened and frequently transformed from their natural state into agricultural fields. Because of these large-scale changes, farmed lands are now the most important habitat for some bustards in Asia. Low-intensity agriculture has had sustainable outcomes for both bustards and humans. Bustards benefit from the mosaic of habitats that low-intensity agriculture can provide. A mix of vegetation types and heights can provide for the various needs of the birds throughout their reproductive cycles. At the same time, farmers can benefit from the natural insect control that bustards provide. They are basically vacuums for agricultural pests. However, mechanization of agriculture can crush the nests and chicks of bustards. The use of agricultural chemicals not only poisons birds, as we just described, but also destroys the protein-rich insect diet they require to raise their young. Irrigation can flood nests, and agricultural monocultures create homogeneity that does not support the full life cycle of bustards, nor the wider needs of biodiversity. We need to find solutions for agricultural production that will benefit a variety of species of birds, but also ensure that these lands are used and maintained for healthy food production for current and future human generations. One way forward in this regard is the concept of agricultural reserves. We can work within the CAF framework to partner with a wider coalition of stakeholders interested in sustainability to promote the idea of agro-reserves at the national and international level, perhaps by using the IUCN Category 5 protected landscape concept. These are three ways that I see a road forward to work together within the CAF towards mutual goals, to achieve benefits for multiple threatened taxa and healthier and more sustainable outcomes for humankind. 1, flyway level multi-taxa planning for wildlife-friendly energy infrastructure. 2, coordinated efforts to reduce improper use of poisonous chemicals, and 3, development of a network of agricultural reserves. The CAF is a large and diverse partnership. This brings together countries with very different political, economic, cultural, religious, and language backgrounds. So working together will naturally bring challenges. And we will need to bring or keep in mind some principles while doing so, specifically a spirit of inclusivity, of respect, acknowledgement of the contributions of others, and also keep in mind the value of listening and learning from the experiences of others, and understanding that the same answer may not apply in every context. Different contexts may require different approaches. At the same time, working together can yield tremendous benefits. These include greater outcomes for biodiversity at large scale, and there is the potential for conservation to build bridges between countries that are, in other ways, at odds with one another. Thank you for this opportunity to speak, and I look forward to being in contact with you and to working together within the CAF framework. Thank you.
Wonderful. We had here another great conversation, and I think the last slides were especially important also to remember that we really work with birds, but also with people, and that we work transboundary. That's what the whole flyway idea is about, and how difficult it is, but also how rewarding it can be, and how it can bring people together, like in this small seminar. And we come now to our last but not least presenter, Osama Al-Nouri. Many of you know him because he has been already since 2011 the project manager at BirdLife International, with an expertise on birds and energy infrastructure, hunting of birds and tourism sector development. And formerly he worked in the Syrian Society for the Conservation of Wildlife, which was a BirdLife affiliate in Syria. Osama, I'm very happy you are here with us, and I'm looking very much forward to your presentation now.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen.
Oh.
Okay, I hope that is fine. I'm heard. Okay, thank you very much, Seidel Foundation, for giving me this opportunity to speak in this important masterclass. As many of you might know, BirdLife International is the largest world partnership for people and nature, composed of more than 115 NGOs in countries and territories around the world, trying to work together for the benefits of nature and people. And in the flyway work in particular, as we have heard from all other speakers that came before me and that actually covered much of the concepts and important aspects of the flyway work in particular for our countries or part of the world as well, can be a very important social, economic, and even political vehicle to foster collaboration between countries along the flyway and use this busy route of birds to try and have that as a support for many of the efforts that can take place at many levels, in addition, of course, to ensuring that the birds themselves are well secured and well protected as they go into this wonder of migration that is really stunning for the whole world. It has been said very well about the different flyways of the world and how perhaps that have led also to the great success of the Interflyway workshop that Hans Seidel led in the CMS COP14 in last February, where the different flyways of the world demonstrated their work and the need of interflyway collaboration really emerged. And in particular, in the case of many of the Arab countries, there is a kind of an overlap due to their geographic location, which can make them really go into that. So as we have very well seen in the Central Asian Flyway, the initiative that was really led by the government of India and supported by BirdLife International and many others, it shows that the western part of this flyway includes a number of Arab countries like Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, even to the borders of Iraq and Bahrain. And all of them include very important sites, and especially coastal wetlands. And we are now in the BirdLife Middle East office finalizing a wetland assessment and plan for the coastal wetlands in those countries to be a part of the work under this flyway. But those countries, again, are, along with many, part of the eastern part of the African Eurasian flyway. And probably this is one of the important gaps in place, because while we have the other initiative on the other flyways, and even as I think Vivian mentioned, the collaboration on the East Atlantic flyway, where there's an initiative within the African Eurasian flyway. I'm sorry for the acronyms, but that is the case. So we have the African Eurasian flyway, eastern part, that is shown on the map, and the western part, which happens to be the East Atlantic part of the flyway, where there is an established initiative. So there are gaps there, and many of the countries in the Middle East fall in between the two flyways, which adds to the responsibility and the needed action. And where in many of those we have collaborative partners, NGOs, but in the many others where those are not available, we're having direct relationships with the governments and environmental councils that are leading on the environmental work to mainstream our agenda. To that purpose, we have launched this EAF initiative, aiming really to have a strong BirdLife capacity collaboration to stimulate and support effective conservation of migratory birds in the eastern part that happens to be overlapping with the Central Asian flyway, by reducing threats and securing networks in key sites and landscapes as we move. And we have just finalized, end of last year, a major assessment of the conservation priorities, and that led with many of our partners internationally, the Ecological Restoration Fund and the Luke Hoffman Flyway Fund and others, to really kick off in our work. And the aim of the work is really to transform the conservation status of the flyway work through probably three main pillars. One is related to the capacity building, where BirdLife partners are on the front line, not only the front line when it comes to nature at the very local level, but on the front line with national bodies that are, and authorities that are having different development plans, many of which, as we have heard from examples, are not really environmentally friendly when it comes to the flyway. And hence our partners on the ground with their supporters are really leading the way into discussions, all kinds of engagements at those two levels, and the capital, or where the decisions are made for the national level, but also on the front line with nature, where we need to ensure that the protection of the birds. So unless those grass-rooted organizations are well equipped, we have an issue into ensuring that the work is done. And that's where we have many of the aspects needed. Another thing is to ensure that there are financial flows to benefit nature. And unfortunately, this is a reality. Unless we have those flows in place, it would be very hard to support any level. And we more and more see, and probably also maybe refer to that, only flyway scale funding would be able to respond to flyway scale problems and issues. And that is really needed, which is still missing in many of the cases. And the last third pillar is on the ground impact, because unless you really have management of and restorations of sites and landscapes and dealing with issues on the ground, it will be very hard really to advance the agenda. So we are moving with some of the objectives and deliverables in place. I'm very happy to see that we are finalized, BirdLife have finalized with many partners conservation strategy for the CAF, which is great. And we are on our way to have another strategy for the eastern part of the African Eurasian flyway. And those strategies will be of paramount importance to lead the work and deliver the needed actions on the ground. This is related to the capacity of our partners to ensure it in place. An assessment of the capacity of the partners is being finalized at this moment. That will be followed by a kind of a program to ensure that those gaps are identified and responded to by delivering a program that will ensure that these gaps are filled by the next 2 years, so that partners are fully equipped to proceed into the work that is needed. Another thing is to identify the key sites and landscapes and have it ready for potential investments. And probably that is one of the important lessons that we had in the East Asian Australian Flyway. For those who know that, I think we started by 10 and now we are at 12 sites, and those sites will be the main icons for the interventions that we are aiming at. And similarly, those sites, when identified under the Central Flyway, Asian Flyway, or the eastern part of the EAF, we will also need to have ready profiles, investment profiles for those files that would speak the language of potential donors and investment organizations and others, development banks, and so on. And like it was the case of other development banks that have been identified for other flyways, I think we are in BirdLife now launching those discussions with the potential development banks and development donors that would be really putting their influx of needed finances to ensure fly work is delivered. Again, research and monitoring on the ground action is key. We need to scale up the proven pilots, sites and habitats conservation, and share approaches and lessons learned for wider application for that. And of course, definitely as BirdLife, we are the authority of the Red List when it comes to contributing to the IUCN-led work on birds. So it's us on the ground that are ensuring the status of birds. And I've seen, for example, our partner in Kazakhstan, how this work is led. And then another issue is to importantly respond quickly to stop or mitigate the high-risk development at emergency casework sites. And we have developed some of those, and some of those are already in countries in the region where, for example, mega cities or big developments are being highly adopted at a high political level. And the time would be very short to take action. And that's when we step in to ensure that this is being led, creating the investment engagement strategy that is in place, and pushing for a policy and advocacy to ensure that the right audience is informed. We have assigned all those threats in the flyway. Many of them have been listed by previous speakers. Let me speak about the last conference where we had dealt in the last year, for example, with the 3 of the threats regarding the illegal killing of birds. In the last COP in Uzbekistan, we've been very successful in launching a task force for the Southwest Asia. This is similar to a task force that is already existing under the CMS for the Mediterranean that we have established since 2015. And as one of the speakers reported, much of the killing is taking in Middle East countries or by Middle East hunters actually outside the Middle East. So this is a great development we look forward to continue with. Another main threat is also highlighted by previous speakers, is energy. And since 2015, also, we've been working into the Intergovernmental Energy Task Force under the CMS. And we had also a very successful side event during COP14, where we highlighted the issues and the solution, also mentioned, I think, by the first speaker, the evolution from the sensitivity mapping tool that was born in the Middle East region into AVISTEP now, and the need to ensure that those are really taken forward by the development. And I agree by Mimi, it should be at a flyway scale level. And also the third threat is the climate change that I would like to realize here, where we, in the Middle East, it showed, in the MENA region, we showed that the last two COPs were organized, once in Egypt and the other in UAE. The coming is not far in Baku. That will pave the way into Brazil work afterwards. So our work collectively is very important to ensure that we deliver there. I would like here also to highlight collaboration with Hans Seidel Foundation and the good initiative for Hans Seidel Foundation to go ahead with the MENA Regional Network on Climate Change, which I think will be very beneficial. Finally, I would like to say couple of things. There are many important flyway initiatives in the world. I'm happy to report that BirdLife is heavily engaged in the East Asian Australian one with the Asian Development Bank and others. Vivian looked into that, but another one on the Americas Flyway Initiative, which is also supported by CAF, which is a development regional bank in the Americas. And I think we together bring those initiatives together at those in the time and bridge the needed gaps between them, which is also very essential. Finally, I would say flyway work is a process. It's a long process. We look for common aims and go for it. And we are open to collaboration with all authorities on that purpose. Thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you so much, Osama. That was really a wonderful presentation and also perfectly in time. So, yeah, in the Central Asian Flyway, we have the highest mountain to look at, but then we can also look down best from the top of it, and our birds fly over it. That's very great, and I hope we can really all work on it. Now, we have still some time left for the question and answer session, which immediately follows now. And we have already a number of questions. Some of them have already been answered, I think. For example, I think Catherine's question on the flywayuse.com site has been answered, and the question on AVISTEP, I hope, has also been answered. We have then a question from Dr. Che. Do you want to repeat it maybe here, or should I read it?
Please read it. Thank you.
Okay. Experts in various fields, like today's participants, mentioned how we could collaborate with young people. Even though Vivian shared the empowering youth activity, I personally felt it was not continuous. How can we sustainably work with young people on projects that benefits birds and nature, which is essentially given the current climate crisis? Also, do you think a voluntary group or activity among us is possible to work with or for birds, with the youth, I guess? So Vivian, would you be the first to answer that maybe?
Okay, great. Thanks, Dr. Choi, for that question about the young people. Well, I don't have a certain answer because it's really depending on everyone's innovation for engaging with the young people. But I felt like there can be two groups of focus. One group is to focus on empowering the young people in the decision-making process. So we provide a platform for them to speak out and voice out their needs and concern and engage in decision-making process. That would be one issue that we can think about and create the opportunities. Like now, RAMSA, CBD, EAFP, they're all doing this for the young people by creating working group and task forces as an institutionalized channel for engaging young people. And another way is to provide resources and capacity building support for the young people so that when they have new ideas, they wanted to try out, but because they're relatively less experienced, they are less competitive for getting resources to implement what they wanted to do. So for us, like international NGO, maybe we can think of ways that we can provide resources. It can be like what Catherine mentioned, internship, mentorship. We can do like small grants for young people. Like these kind of resources can allow them to take actions instead of just thinking and speaking. They can do the innovative way for engaging in young conservation work with the young groups. So and also empowering and providing opportunities for the young staff in an organization. For example, for conferences, it's always the senior members to join. But if we can allow like some young staff to also have the opportunities to join some of these activities, the conferences and meetings, that will widen their vision for how they can be um, using these platforms to change the world. So I think it's not only one way that we can do it, so many different ways. It's up to the organization whether we wanted to invest in and put in resources for young people. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would like to read what Catherine Hall wrote on that question related to your question. At the Ornithological Society of the Kyrgyz Republic, OSKG, we are trying to find good internship opportunities for students and young professionals. We are also willing to host interns, young professional research students from other countries to support them to gain experience. If any other organization would like to take part in this initiative, please do get in touch. I think, Catherine, we will get in touch with you soon on that because I have some ideas on that, but it's really for all of us a great opportunity to link through this kind of cooperation. Now, I'm not sure, we got a new message here, I see, right?
Yes, Dr. Jalliger, we have a question from Unem Bayer.
Okay. Question to all speakers. How can we strengthen sectoral cooperation to reduce the threat of birds in terms of electrocution and agriculture, etc. issues? Very important question. So who would like to start to answer that?
Yeah, Seliger, I will just try to
Mm-hmm.
answer that. Yeah,
Please.
maybe Osama wants to speak. Maybe he can also throw some light.
Mhm.
So it's a cross-sectoral cooperation is biggest lacuna, especially in countries like India. The departments, most of the times, various departments, there is a separate energy department, there is separate energy ministry, there is separate agriculture ministry, the forest department, which looks after all the wildlife, including migratory bird, is separate. In some areas, they do work, with cooperation, but some areas, some of the regions, there is a complete lack of cooperation. And with simple, some simple interdepartmental meetings and workshops, the major issues can be, sorted very easily. But some of the issues, it's again like, for example, Great Indian Bustard. All the major habitats of Great Indian Bustard in Rajasthan was filled with power lines and wind farms. So all the organization, including the forest department, has been requesting the Ministry of Renewable Energy to consider undergrounding the cables, power lines in certain regions. Although they are okay with it, but still there are some cost involved, unwillingness. So I think it works. It's a bit hard to work with the other ministries, but if we keep on collaborating with them, keep them aware, other sector like agriculture sector, the importance of bird species, importance of that particular, agriculture habitat on sustaining this particular bird population. So if keep communicating these things to the other sectors, so I think it is the key, way to work with the other sectors. I think I try to answer. Probably Osama can throw more light. Yeah.
Would there be anybody else answering to that?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that is very relevant, and I would like to refer to our experience in the Middle East region by mainstreaming bird conservation with the sectors, and under one particular project, under the Migratory Soaring Project, the sector included 5 sectors, including hunting, tourism, energy, agriculture, and waste management. And in each of those sectors, we established over a decade of work, put relationship like a spider on a web, establish relationship with those sectors to ensure that the practices of the sector are really friendly to the birds. And that would ensure that we speak the language of the sector, we are present at the events of that sector, and we provide the solutions to the sector. And for example, let me take the energy example. In the energy, 2 types of threats are for birds. We have the collision with power lines and wind farms, and we have the electrocution with power lines. So we need to identify those. We've been, for example, in our example, talking to the people in the sector. For example, we have signed an MOU with the Arab Union of Electricity, and we sat with the utility people and explained to the engineers the problem and showed the solution, which is also to their benefit because it reduces the cost of fixing the power lines. So that is the kind of thing we need to do. We have done in other cases as well, like attending the different conferences related, like the important event of conference on wind energy and wildlife, which is a yearly event and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to add, Osama, you also posted something on leadership program, Cambridge Conservation Initiative. I think that referred to the first question of Dr. Chi. And
Sure.
I want to read, wonderful. And I want to read the next question from Nari Lee, a conservationist from Korea. Hello, Nari. I think each country has its own challenges when it comes to working with local communities on bird conservation. What are some of the challenges in each country, and how do you guys figure out that? I've worked on projects in Korea and Mongolia with local communities, wildlife conservation and afforestation, so I'm curious to hear your insights. Certainly a very complex question, but would there be anybody daring enough to answer that? How to deal with local communities and wildlife conservation?
Again, let me try to
others
answer
are,
that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go.
Both
Go
of
ahead,
you,
Osama,
one
please.
of you starts again.
Okay, so I think we need to look at what we see in most of the cases is the tip of the iceberg. There are deep rooted issues in the conflict between local communities and nature. And those in so many of the cases were the results of the unsustainable development plans and strategies that was, especially in our region, developed in the last 100 years that did not or ignored the real harmony that was in place for hundreds of years between local communities and nature. We, throughout in our history, for example, in our region, there has been the HIMA approach, which is a way of community-based management of natural resources. The last 100-year development ignored that and put in place a system that imposed on national or local communities a new way that really ignored their interest. It is bringing justice again and bringing harmony again between the real interest of the local communities and the development that can restore that relationship and fix it. And without that, we will continue into that conflict, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. And the other next answer?
Yeah, it's not answer. I'm just telling you an example we had. So in India, we can say there are different type of communities, especially working with the indigenous communities who are living in natural habitats and still they are following the natural way of life. It's very easy to work with them for the nature conservation. They open us with like they receive us with two open hands. So all the thing we need to find is there is a, as Osama has rightly said, there is a the balance has been now it's there is no balance, even though they are indigenous communities living with nature because of all this economic development and pressure, so societal pressure. There is an imbalance between nature and the way of their way of living. So to address that, working with indigenous communities for India, I have worked with some remote indigenous communities in the eastern part of the Nagaland where the forest belongs to the communities. They have been practicing sustainable hunting and they have been completely dependent on forests. But now, due to certain marketing and other global pressure, that balance has been broken. So they were open to all our ideas. They want some expertise support and some alternative livelihood. They have ideas and this thing. They want it to sustain, so they need some resource and technical expertise. But the other group, we can say it's urban communities or communities who are not of not related, not as now they are not living in harmony with nature. So for those communities, it's really, I think we need to highlight the importance. A lot of awareness needs to be created. We need to say the economical importance of a particular habitat or particular species. In that way, I think we can approach. There are some success stories in India. In that way, I think maybe one of the way to address this issue. Thank you.
If I may add on a little bit, that's perhaps
Okay.
there are. Sorry, Dr. Seidel.
Sorry.
Yes, just some thought about like involvement of the local communities. Like for conservation, we are looking at maybe two different subsystems. Some of them they are within the protected areas, and for those which are the protected area, for in all cases, like for long that we have been meeting the local communities. Some of the protected area design they were thinking of like removing or relocating the local community, so for less disturbance. So I think this is now changing for the pattern that the local communities are considered in the management plan in some of the protected areas. So as some of the speakers mentioned, mainstreaming engagement of local community engagement would be a really important action for conservation, so that we can also not benefiting the local communities, but also use of their indigenous knowledge on wise use and sustainable use of the habitat as in the old ways. And another way that I think we can also think more is about how to protect the protected areas, because like a lot of the species, maybe half of the migratory mortar birds in East Asian Australasian flyway, that's not protected for their important habitat. So for those areas and protected areas, we also think about how can we harmonize with the local communities to balance between the developments and the conservations. That would be a real challenge as economic growth and developments in urbanizations. There are like green energy, new threats appearing like climate change. So mechanism or mainstreaming the like local communities would be a really important play role for included in the conservation plan. For the second phase is in the unprotected area. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think we are almost at the end, but not completely. We have here what I would rather say is maybe more a comment by Sadi Adavi, I hope I say it rightly. In Palestine, we faced exceptional circumstances due to political tensions, which posed numerous challenges to the conservation and protection of migratory birds, even our local birds. Despite the earnest efforts of many national and local institutions, achieving progress remains difficult. That's absolutely clear. I think, as we said, like bird conservation, cross-border can bring peace. When there's no peace in a region or in the country, also this will really pose a lot of challenges for bird conservation and other activities. And we all just pray for peace in that region and many other regions of the world. And the last one I want to talk about, because I find it interesting, it also gives us a little bit broader perspective again from our flyways in East Asia, in Central Asia. We already, Osama talked about the European African, and here we have now two comments and questions from Isifu Sulemana, Jobila Seal in Ghana, who asked, why is so much done and talked about birds in Asia, but less in Africa? And do you have any partners or collaborators in Africa working on bird protection? Maybe there would be somebody trying to answer that. Maybe Osama also, because BirdLife works internationally, but also anybody else.
Yeah, thank you. I would immediately say that, of course, work in Africa is very important. Probably, as I commented to the question, that the focus of this session has been the Central Asian flyway. And that's why probably we did not really dwell a lot on issues in Africa. But definitely, the African Eurasian flyway by name is Africa related. It is very much important. We have, as BirdLife, offices in Nairobi and in in West Africa. We have partners all over. Great work is being done on the flyway. The East Atlantic Flyway Initiative has been for years led by BirdLife in Africa with many partners in West Africa and in Europe. The current work that I referred to in East part of the African Eurasian Flyway includes many of the African partners, and for sure that is an important work. It will continue for sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, I'm very sorry, I have to close now the debate here. I know we could talk endlessly, but I have to go to another place, and some of you too. But before we do so, first of all, I want to thank very, very much all of our speakers and all who organized this conference. And at the first place, I want to mention here Ms. Minje Beck in our office, who really put everything together and made it also technically as excellent as possible. And then I want to try something now. If every one of you, at least those of you who are not laying improperly closed in your bed, could, for a very short time, start your camera, then we can do a picture of all of us once as a kind of commemorative picture. And I see all of you look very good, at least those who open their cameras. Wonderful. And I want in the meantime say this is the first of our virtual masterclass. It's just the start of a program, which is a worldwide program. You already heard from Osama. We have, for example, in our field working on birds and biodiversity, also our colleagues in the MENA region who work on that. But we have other wonderful projects on climate change in other places, and we will inform you about the upcoming sessions of the virtual masterclass in the future too. And I want also here to single out, I saw her somewhere, Miss Bear. Where is she? Sorry, I'm not so good in seeing everybody here, who is a global leader of this program. This is also wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for organizing, and our back office in Munich, naturally, which is also here. And now we're almost all here. Ms. Beck, you know how to do it, right? So if, I don't know, you just can take a screenshot. We have somebody walking even. Didn't know that's possible during a virtual masterclass. It's a walking masterclass. Wonderful. And yeah, everybody have a good start in the day or a good evening, like here in Korea, or a good lunch break. And I hope we can see soon again. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye bye.